If you're an HR professional who works hard to fill roles within your company, keep employees engaged, and build company culture, welcome to America Back to Work, where dreams only work if we do. We'll share wide-ranging issues surrounding pre-employment background screening, HR topics such as recruiting, hiring, labor trends, and company culture, as well as broader HR-influenced business topics such as customer experience, service level excellence, and protecting what matters through best practices in prevention, protection, and corporate security. America Back to Work is brought to you by S2 Verify. Here's your host, Arnette Heintze.
Welcome to America Back to Work, brought to you by S2 Verify, where our purpose is to help you hire with confidence and manage insider risk. I'm your host, Arnette Heintze. Thank you for joining. Today, our guest is Ross Cadastre. Ross is a highly respected and recognized expert in recruiting and has significant experience working with companies to build the right teams. Ross, thank you for taking the time to join us today. I'm really looking forward to learning about unconventional recruiting strategies and how to hire the best talent. But before we start that, would you mind sharing a little bit about your career and your background with our audience?
Thank you, Arnette, and it's my pleasure to be here today. I'm pretty excited for this conversation. Being a 28-year-old veteran in the recruiting industry, so as you can imagine, I've seen a lot of change. My career started I guess, like most recruiters, by accident. When I started in the recruiting industry about 28 years ago, I didn't even know it existed. I like to say I didn't even know how to spell recruit, but I landed into the industry when I came to Canada, totally by accident. Worked with a number of smaller recruitment organizations over the years, and built a career where I worked for North American companies and one of the global six large recruitment firms in Canada, where I led delivery operations for them across Canada.
Oh, that's fabulous. Fabulous. So as we get started, I think many members of the audience might benefit to have a definition that you can provide of unconventional recruiting methods. So would you help us out there?
When I think of unconventional recruitment methods, they encompass innovative approach that really diverge from traditional hiring practices that we know. These methods aim to address shortcomings in traditional recruitment, such as biases, limited access to diverse talent, and quite frankly, outdated evaluation criteria. And I can give some examples of what those methods look like. One of them is blind recruitment, right? And that's kind of removing information like names, gender, age from resumes to reduce unconscious bias in the initial screening process. Another emerging method is AI-powered tools. So, there's a lot of talk globally about AI, and it does affect the recruitment agents, the recruitment industry. In fact, our company has developed an AI tool that screens resumes, assesses skills, and match candidates based on qualifications, potentially minimizing bias on the candidate selection. And there are a bunch of other tools out there that are AI powered that form part of that unconventional recruiting methods.
I love the first example that you gave, where it can remove the name, all the personal identifiers, because that really can get the bias out of the way a good bit.
Yes, we see it with whether it be an underrepresented group, i.e., women or Black or a person of color. We find that just removing that name from there, it makes it pure, and actually using, if you parlay that with the AI tools, the AI tools will assess a candidate regardless of its name, background, education, and says these are your top candidates, right?
Yeah, I think it's amazing the way AI is impacting all aspects of our life, and I can't wait to see all the impact it has with recruiting, hiring, all HR issues. So, recently, Ross, I know you had published an article about unconventional methods and how they worked. And you mentioned some names like hackathons, skill challenges, gamified assessments, virtual reality simulations. Help us with those. Tell us how they work, and are they viable beyond technology roles?
Absolutely. They actually offer innovative ways to assess skills and the capabilities across various domains, extending beyond technology and technology roles. Hackathons, for example, these events, are events where individuals and teams collaborate to solve problems or create solutions within a set time frame. So it's not exclusive to coding or technology. They can encompass business challenges, product ideation, creative problem solving, maybe. It really assesses teamwork, creativity, problem solving, and rapid idea execution. Then we have skills challenges. Really, really involves practical exercises and projects that stimulate real job tasks. For instance, if you think about marketing, candidates can develop a marketing strategy. Or if you think about project management, they can create a project plan. So those skills challenges evaluate candidates' ability to, or their ability in a tangible, applicable manner to the job. Gamified assessments, I love this one. It uses game-like elements such as scenarios, challenges, or quizzes to evaluate skills and competencies. It can include various roles, like in a customer service situation, stimulating a client interaction, or if it was a leadership role, decision-making scenarios and preparing that. And of course, VR, virtual reality simulation, really immerses candidates in realistic scenarios specific to a job role, allowing them to showcase their problem-solving, decision-making, technical proficiency. For example, it could stimulate a manufacturing environment or a customer service interaction again. So I think they're all important.
Great summary of those items there. I know you also called out video application submissions, referral programs with incentives, and social media targeting. How do these work?
I love video application submissions. There are a number of companies that are creating situations where candidates can submit short videos, often in response to a specific question or set of questions as part of the application. It allows the recruiter to assess the candidate's communication, presentation, and personality beyond what a traditional resume provides. The old adage says, a resume comes to life when you meet somebody. And, the video application submission gives you an opportunity to get a glimpse into their authenticity, enthusiasm, and how they articulate their experience and qualifications. Referral programs have been around for a very long time. And that's why companies incentivize employees to refer candidates to open positions. If it results in a hire, then the employee receives a reward. It's important that companies continue to kind of leverage their employees' networks to attract potential candidates who might not have applied on their own. So that's another great way to do that. And then social media targeting. I want to talk about all the platforms that are available, but in particular LinkedIn. We've seen a lot of companies using LinkedIn to specifically target candidates with specific skills, job titles, or experiences. And the way that would work, LinkedIn has provided a platform where you can choose, to feed information to a target based on their demographic, their interests, and their professional backgrounds. So we're seeing a lot of companies starting to use that more to be able to attract a better quality candidate for their roles.
Well, I'm a huge advocate of this strategy and using unconventional recruiting methods. But for any of our audience that maybe doesn't quite understand all the positive impacts of this, give us some examples where this has been really successful in recruiting great diverse candidates.
If I think back to some examples here, like if we take blind recruitment, I believe there was a study done by the Australian Department of the Prime Minister that found that blind recruitment led to 60% increase in the likelihood for female candidates being shortlisted for roles. 60%. Okay, and if you think about just removing the names, the age, and of course that information. We look at the social media targeting that I spoke about earlier. We've actually used this for some of our clients, including a tech company, that they were aiming to kind of increase female representation in the engineering space. And we use targeted ads highlighting inclusive culture, okay? And they got a surge of applications from women, and were able to hire a few, which changed the landscape from an innovation standpoint by having female people around the table. So it was a great story there. I also know of Price Waterhouse Coopers, PwC as it's known. They have implemented VR assessments for job candidates, and their experience simulates real workplace scenarios. And they have found this approach appeal to a wider range of candidates, including from diverse backgrounds and diverse pools of candidates, and we're able to find candidates there. So I can go on and on. There are various hackathons and skill challenges being used by tech companies predominantly. But there are some, I think there was a financial institution that we've worked with in the past that reported that they use hackathons focused on financial inclusion. And that event really attracted a diverse participants passionate about the financial services industry.
Great. So let's assume that a company's had a very successful recruiting campaign where they've targeted BIPOC and other diverse individuals, and they've been successful. They've identified them. They've made job offers. Why is it so important that organizations create a really aligned, welcoming experience for the candidate? Because I think that's something maybe some organizations may not tie in as crucial to this, and having that welcoming experience that really is targeted is helpful.
You're right, and creating a welcoming candidate experience, particularly around Black, Indigenous people of color, and other underrepresented groups, is crucial for a number of reasons. So, if you think of attraction and retention of diverse talent, a positive candidate experience really demonstrates an organization's commitment to inclusivity and equity. It attracts diverse candidates and encourages them to consider opportunities within a company. So that's one. Innovation and creativity is another one. We have found that diverse teams foster innovation and creativity. If you think about the example when we spoke about women in particular, especially in the engineering space, in technology, one of the great things is that organizations that bring more of a diverse team on the development, they get more creative ideas. If you're building technology that services the consumer, wouldn't it make sense to have a reflection of your consumer in your development team, so you can build a better product that caters to that? So that's very, very important as well. Employer branding, candidates often share their experiences during the hiring process. So a positive experience, especially from underrepresented groups, enhances an organization's reputation as an inclusive employer, and this helps them attract more diverse talent, but more talent, period, because they're also allies in diversity that also would look at an employer's brand and say, I want to work for this company because they embrace diversity. There's also an element of what I would call fairness and equity. You know, a welcoming candidate experience reflects on an organization's value. Quite frankly, it ensures that candidates, irrespective of their background, are treated fairly and respectfully through the recruitment process. So it really mitigates biases and creates a level playing field for all applicants.
Yep. So, Ross, as you may know, I spent my first half of my professional career in law enforcement. And in the last 30 years, there's been a hugely significant effort to address unconscious bias in law enforcement. But I've come to hear that there's also an unconscious bias in the recruitment process. And why don't you talk to us a little bit about how these unconventional methods really help mitigate these biases?
It can significantly impact the recruitment process by influencing decision makers based on subconscious preferences, stereotypes. I remember when I started my career, I worked for a company that, would only hire people from a certain university. And that wasn't even on purpose. It was, he hired one or two people and he says, they worked out. So the first thing he'd zero down to is the resume and say, okay, where did he go to school? Okay, he's hired, right? and that was the process at that time, right? But here's how, the unconscious bias can manifest, in ways, right? So your resume screening, for example, right? Unconscious bias can lead into favoring certain names, education as an institution, and experiences over others, right? Unconventional methods like blind recruitment that I spoke of earlier, where we remove all that information, it keeps you focused on qualifications and skills, right? Through the interview process, biases can affect the interview judgment based on factors of appearance, mannerisms, shared interests, accents like mine. I'm from the beautiful island of St. Lucia. But if you get into an unconventional method like a structured interview with standardized questions, it will help ensure fairness by evaluating all candidates against the same criteria. So, for example, I'm going through a process on a board that I serve where we're hiring a CEO, and the questions are all structured and standard, and you can't veer from it. So you're actually measuring people based on those questions. So I think that's a great way to kind of structure the interview. Now, when it comes to making a decision, the bias can influence that final hiring decision. So, so the AI-powered tools that I spoke about, it can help with your resume screening and your and skill assessment focus, right? So it will minimize the subjective piece, because what the tool would do is will go through the resume and the job description, saying, okay, this person is a definite fit for this role, okay? You would have your top 3 candidates. So it doesn't take into consideration any of that bias.
Yeah. So I want you to pull out your crystal ball and let's talk about the future. And how do you envision the recruiting landscape evolving in the years ahead, especially as it relates to the unconventional recruiting methods? What do you see taking place?
I see definitely AI and data analytics, okay, at the forefront, technology-driven tools that will further revolutionize recruitment. Now, not take the place of the core part of recruitment, which is relationship building, but will take everything else that surrounds that and take a lot of that work, giving recruiters more time to focus on building relationships. We've seen remote work be a big phenomenon since COVID. We're going to see that expand, but also we're going to see an influx of global talent, right? More global talent. So we have a number of clients in the US that are working with candidates sitting in Pakistan, for example.
Yeah.
Right? 10 years ago, that would be unheard of. But now, we're seeing that, and that can only happen through these unconventional methods to facilitate remote hiring and assessment, making it easy to tap into that network. Diversity and inclusion. I think companies will increasingly prioritize diversity and inclusion. So methods like blind recruitment, diverse interview paths, and AI tools will take the lead there. Skills-based hiring is another very, very important one, where we're making the decision based on the skills, over potential traditional markers like degrees and specific experience. We look at degrees are becoming something of the past because people want to know more about the skills that you bring to the table versus the degree that you have. So I think all of these will contribute to the future and how we look at recruitment.
That's wonderful. I can't wait to see how these strategies play out, and as we move into the years ahead. So we've reached the end of our conversation, but before we sign off, I'd like to ask you a final question, which I ask every guest, which is, if S2 Verify were to conduct a background investigation on you, would there be any surprises?
Probably not be too many surprises. However, I will say that, a lot of people don't know that in my past, I used to be a nightclub DJ when I was at university. And I enjoyed doing events at large parties and that sort of thing. Never got myself into trouble, thankfully. I'm from the islands, and my parents wouldn't have it if I was found in trouble. So
there you go. Well, thank you, Mr. DJ. I appreciate that. So thanks for joining us. It's been a great conversation. How can our listeners connect and follow what's up with your work?
I'm a heavy user of LinkedIn, so you can look me up on LinkedIn. You sign up for my newsletter, some of the content we discussed today. And I think that would be the best way. I'm on Instagram as well, and Facebook. I'm on all social media. So I'd be happy to connect with anybody, and I connect with everybody.
That's wonderful. I'm sure you could help a lot of companies out there with these new recruiting strategies. Before we sign off, I'd also like to have a minute with my partners, Bill and Jim at S2 Verify. Jim mentioned a topic that I think our audience could benefit from, and it relates to the timing of when backgrounds should start. So it's around a conditional offer. So the employee has to be offered a conditional position subject to the successful completion of a background screening. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right, Arnette, that, in the past, they would run the background check before they made an offer, but a lot of companies have realized you got to make a conditional offer, and the EOC has really enforced this. You got to make a conditional offer prior to running a background check. And so in the process, with a lot of ATS applicant tracking systems, they track that, and then they'll actually order the background after they make the conditional offer via the applicant tracking system, or they could do it internally.
So what does the employer put themselves at risk for if they don't have that conditional offer extended, if they just, as a routine matter, just start screening individuals before they offer a position?
Well, the first thing they need to do is make sure they have a consent from the applicant. And they got to do that within the hiring process. So they have to make a conditional offer to get them to sign a consent. The litigation, so they're subject to litigation from a lot of these class attorneys if they don't make a conditional offer and then do the background check. And they're subject to the EOC coming in and fining them in addition to the litigation of the attorneys. So
good. So when if you look up and down the compliance ladder, Another area that I think our clients and audience would love to hear more about is a 613 letter. So, Jim, why don't you share with us a little bit of insight around 613 letters, because I know that's just one of the steps in the process. And the next topic after this should be adverse action letters, I believe. So tell us about 613 letters.
The 613 letter is actually after the statute within the FCRA, but it simply depicts that a consumer has the right to be notified. Careful term here, when public records have been accessed and a record has been discovered as part of an employment process they're engaged in. The 613 has nothing to do with the result of the record, the action that could or could not be taken. It simply is telling a consumer that as part of your background, a public record or records have been accessed as part of the background or assessment for the job or employment for which you've applied. And those letters, by law, go out immediately upon receipt by a CRA of that letter, of that report or that record, so that we receive a criminal record on John Smith, and that there is a criminal record in a certain county, that automatically, within our system, benefiting the employer, dispatches the 613. It's fully automatic. You got a record, it was a public record, the 613 is dispatched. And it's simply nomenclature that describes the act of obtaining a public record as part of an employment process. Billy, anything you want to toss at that?
No, I mean, it's typically the responsibility of the CRA, the Consumer Reporting Agency, to send that out. It is confusing a lot of times to the applicants. They call in here, asking what it is. And it doesn't mean that they're disqualified from a job. It just means that we found a record on them using public access data. So,
for our audience, please tune in next week when we continue our discussion on topics critical to success in HR. And we'll see you then. And it goes without saying, let's get America, and since Ross is in Canada, we got to include Canada, back to work, because dreams only work if we do. Ross, thanks so much. I appreciate you joining today.
Thank you. My pleasure.
If you want to stay abreast of HR, recruiting, and hiring trends, tips, and tools, make sure you subscribe to America Back to Work. If you enjoyed this episode, leave us a rating and a review.